Okay, but come.
Okay, good morning, afternoon, evening, wherever you are. The Navi says in Yirmiyahu, this is a time that we usually learn. The added label Divrei Chizuk is a very, 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 very demanding statement. I'm used to learning and teaching and trying to understand things in their source form, and hopefully through seeing things I think they really are, through the Torah, we'll understand how we're supposed to react and what we're supposed to take from this and what we're supposed to do. I'd like to start with one pasuk, a very famous pasuk that everybody uses, again, usually out of context. The pasuk is in Yirmiyahu and Perek Lamed, where it says, "Hoiki gadol hayom ahu me'en kamo, etzar hu liYaakov mimenu yivasha." This normally goes on the Mlchמת Goig. Machlekes Harishonim, what that pasuk means, or the Radak already refers. The same Lashon is found in Daniel in the 12th Perek, in Daniel Perek Beis pasuk Aleph. It says, "Vayta etzara ube'et ha'u yimalet amcha kol hanimtza katuv b'sefer." Mi yimalet, who will be saved in the etzara? This is the etzara Yaakov. Kol hanimtza katuv b'sefer. Ibn Ezra and the Metzudas both say this is talking about us standing up against Malchut Yishmael. והנמלטים הם הכתובים בספר, and they both point out we're talking about the Sefer as quoted in the pasuk in Malachi in Perek Gimel pasuk Tazayin. Pasuk there says, "Az nidberu yirei Hashem ish el re'eu v'yakshev Hashem v'yishma v'yikatev sefer zikaron lefanav yirei Hashem v'choshvei shmo." Those written in that book are the Nimlatim Me'etzara. This is Ibn Ezra and the Radak and the Metzudas there in Daniel, as I mentioned before. The Radak and also Rashi already refer the pasuk in Yirmiyah to that pasuk in Daniel. And that pasuk is, the Mishnah says in Pirkei Avos in the 3rd chapter, in the 3rd Mishnah, Shnaim sheyoshvim v'yesh b'neihem divrei Torah, Shechina shruya b'neihem. There's two people that between them in their conversation there's different Torah. Doesn't mean they're Yoshiv or Oisik Torah. Even in their natural conversation there is different Torah between them. Shechina shruya b'neihem, there's a godly presence amongst them. Shneimar, as the pasuk says, and he quotes that pasuk in Malachi in Perek Gimel pasuk Tazayin, Oz nidberu yira Hashem isha re'eyu. ויקשב השם וישמע ויכתב ספר זיכרון לפניו ויראה השם לחשבי שמו. I'm trying to say that I think there's nothing more appropriate than a Surah. The people get together, that should be Divrei Torah b'neihem. We have a ribuy of people getting together to hear Divrei Torah. That alone, believe me, is the biggest chizik possible. This is the schus of a yimalit kol mi shekasuv b'sefer. Any people that think divrei Torah between two people, just something this is gula and floor. Obviously, I don't plan to engage into what the classical usage of the word divrei chizuk means, which basically pep talk before, with some inspiring story. Rather, if you know me, you know that what I will do is I will try to learn the sugya of the occurrences that we are living through at the moment. Try to understand the way I've been taught and the way I try to teach. And from Divrei Torah, we'll somehow understand what is the avodas Hashem? What does God want from us? What are we supposed to do in this given situation, dealing with these specific occurrences? There's one big cloud we have to understand before we go further.
And Yonah Rubin also. Thank you.
In Daniel already said that there will be 4 kingdoms, 4 malchiot, which take the malchus of Yisrael and they become the malchiot, the kingdoms, the cultures which reign dominant in the world, and ultimately they battle Kedusha, and they battle the fact that there should not be a Malchus of Yisrael. The Ramban in Parshas Balak argues with the Ibn Ezra. This is clearly a major machloket between Sadia Gaon, Ibn Ezra, and many others versus Ramban and Beis Midrashai as to how we enumerate these four Malchios. According to the Beis Midrash, the Ramban, which has become very popularized through the Maral of Prague in his books Ner Mitzvah, the four Malchus, the four major cultures that we deal with are Bavel, Poras, Yavan, and finally Roimi. Obviously, believe me, you go to Italy today, Rome is not exactly an empire. The only thing it's good for is good leather goods. Used to be a capital of fashion, but that's about it. So we talk about the Malchus of Yavan and of Roimi. We're talking about the cultural influences they have, which are now the cultural basis of our cultural world that we live in. What you would call the Western culture based heavily on that came out of Roimi at the time. The Ramban tries to explain how Roimi is an extension historically of Esav, but even without that, the idea is that Esav, so to speak, Edom, has been embodied in the culture which came forth from Rome, and that's what we live with today. This is his understanding, and this is the understanding of multitudes. But the Beis Midrash of the Ibn Ezra, based on the Gaonim, Sadia Gaon, and many, many others, and this is Mashmas also in Zohar HaKadosh, that the Malchus HaAchrayna that we have to deal with is called Malchus Yishmael. They enumerate, they see as Bavel is one, Poros is a second, Yavan and Roimi they see as one long extension. For it is true, there's no unique Roimi taking and broadening out that which we heard in Yavam. The Maral elaborates on this in his book Ner Mitzvah. And then the last Malchus that we have to deal with, the Malchus of Yishmael. Zohar HaKadosh describes how there's going to be a major union between Edom and Yishmael. Ultimately, this will bring us to Achrus Hayom. But when I talk about Yishmael, just as I talk about Yishmael, I don't talk about genealogical Yishmael, because that's actually quite questionable whether the Palestinians today are actually, most of the Bedouins think that they are not originally Ishmaelites, but they are rather come from other African tribes. If you ask the typical Saudi, that's what they will tell you. But that's not my issue. It just as I don't think that the Western world are the offspring of Rome. And I don't have to think that Rome is the offspring of Esav, some tribe in the east of Israel. Rather, we're talking ideologically. So ideologically, when I talk about Yishmael, I talk as Rabbeinu Hananel writes, Mefurish. What Rabbeinu Bechaya and Parshas Vayelech, we will see it shortly. We talk about Yishmael, we talk about Islam. And he counts the Malchus of Yishmael from the beginning of Islam. Actually, that's the same point in time when the Islamic calendar starts. That year, which Muhammad fled from Mecca. Well, this is not a Islam class, but whatever it be, it's Pashtuta shel Islam. This is what the Rabbeinu Hananel calls Malchus Yishmael. What we are doing here, my friends, one has to be able to see history from a broad vantage point. We can't look at things myopically today. It is true, we live in trying to understand the differences of today, focusing on the today is horrendous. It's impossible. If I start looking at the pratim and the pirte pratim, the occurrences today, I think I would go insane. The pain is beyond the numbers are horrendous. If you think proportionately what this would mean, if this would be a population of America, which is 30 times the size of this population of Israel, this is like hundreds of thousands of people. That's what it's like if you want to understand the proportions of what we're talking about. I think that as Bnei Torah, we have to find out what does God want from us, and God expects us to see things not myopically, not locally, but see its broad historical context. What I see here is another major episode in the machlokes between Yishmaeliyut, between Islam, between the ideology of Yishmael versus what we'd call Yitzchakiyut, grandchildren, and ideology which comes out of Yitzchak Avinu, which is the counterpart of Yishmaeliyut. Wow, Jake, I haven't seen you in ages. Nice beard. And here I want to start. The pasuk says, if you have your source sheets, I think they were. If you have your source sheet, it all starts with a parsha in Bereshis and Parshas Lech Lecha, and Perik Tezayim, Psukim Yud, Yud Aleph, Yud Beis. Pasuk says that after Hagar was driven out of the house of Sarah by Avram originally, Malach Hashem, and the Malach of God said to Hagar, Hina Chara, you are pregnant, you're not ben, and you will give birth to a son, V'karas Shmo Yishmael. You will call him by the name of Yishmael, which means Kishama Hashem El Anyech. God has heard your affliction. V'hu yeh pera Adam. We will see shortly what the Rishonim explain there. It means to say that he will be fighting all over. Yodei Bakoil, which according to many Rishonim means he will succeed in everything. He will conquer. But ultimately he will fall. V'yad kol boy, ultimately he will fall. V'chal pnei kol echav yishkon, he will live amongst all his brethren. This is the psukim that I want to see. So what I see here is that he is called Yishmael. Now I want you to flip the page if you don't mind. There's a Pirkei Reb Elazar, a medrash of Reb Elazar, a Gadol Reb Elazar ben Arach, at the end of Perik Lamed. And the Pirkei Reb Elazar writes, etc., on the pasuk found in Bamidbar Chav Dalet, pasuk Chav Gimel. I'll quote the pasuk. When Bilam is about to curse the Jews, yet somehow he says brachas. He says, "Vayisam shalo vayomar oy mi yichye misumo el." Who will live from he who has had the name of God placed upon him? Zokter be'pirkei Reb Elazar Omar Bilam HaKadosh Baruch Hu Sam Shmoi LiYisrael Ho'il v'yishva Kadosh Baruch Hu Shmo Yishmael L'Shmo Yisrael Oy mi yichye b'yamav Shene'emar mi yichye misumo el. Rabbeinu Bechaye actually in the pasuk in Bamidbar, and that says it means as far as I'm going to read it to you. Valderech HaMidrash, and he's quoting his version of the Pirkei Reb Elazar. Omar Bilam, because Shivim Lashon Shebara Kadosh Baruch Hu Ba'olamei, of the 70 nations which God created in His world, Lo Yisam Shema, he only placed his own name explicitly. In other words, he's the one that said, you must call him X, you must call him Y. Only Anhu al Yisrael, as we know, Lo Yaakov Yikar Shimcha El Yisrael, and also Yishmael. Shene'emar Oy B'karasa Shmo Yishmael. B'kivan she'ishva Kadosh Baruch Hu Shmo Yishmael L'Shmo Yisrael. Oy mi yichye misumo el. Oy mi yichye b'yamav. Kach darshu b'pirkei Reb Elazar. It would seem to be that there's a major koyach of Yishmael, which can create major havoc and major pain, a major tzorah l'klal Yisrael, to the extent we say, "Oh, wow!" It's like almost like saying, "Let him come. I don't want to be there." Mi yichye, misumo el. Who can survive when this young man shows up? For he has a koyach of shame, cute aleph lamed, part of his name, which God put there, which means he has certain koyachs, and we want to explain what those koyachs are. What is this shumay el? which is part and parcel of who he is and what he is. What does it mean? You know, the pasuk says, if you want to go to your next sheet, in Bereshis Yud Zayin, after there's already, we know God already did the bris bein absorim and promised Avram Avinu everything. And now he tells him basically they should do the Milah. And afterwards he tells him all of a sudden, Vayomer Elokim el Avraham, Sarai ishtacha lo tikra shmo Sarai ki Sarah shmoi. V'achti ota v'gam natati mimena lecha ben. V'achtia v'ayta legoyim malchei amim mimenu yitzvu. God promises him that what the Sarah ultimately also will have a child equals not just you will have a son for Yishmael from Hagar, you'll actually have one from Sarah, and she will be blessed, and there will be nations and kingdoms coming out of it. Vayipol Avram al panav Yitzchak, vayomer belibo halaben 100 shana yivaleid v'im Sarah bas 90 shana teleid. Vayomer Avraham el Elohim lu Yishmael yichya lefanecha. Halavai that Yishmael, he knows he doesn't need it, doesn't think so. Let Yishmael be there. What are we hearing in this pasuk? Lu Yishmael yichya lefanecha. It's a nice way of saying I'm happy and I'm good that Yishmael should be my heir, and the bris bein absorim should happen with him.
Blachmann.
Yes. This is what you're hearing here in this pasuk. That Avram Avinu himself says, "No, I can't demand so much from a Kadosh Baruch Hu. Whatever Yishmael is, let him be my mamshich. Let him be the continuance of maybe in covered Shemayim ba'olam. Let him have the bris bein absorim. Let him have Eretz Yisrael." Now there the Kadosh Baruch Hu answers your test by Yomer Elokim. But God said, "Saraish t'chayir adescha ben, v'karas shmo Yitzchak, v'kimaisi es bisi itay lebris olam l'zarei acharav." Now, I need you to have a son from Sarah, and she is the one which will have a son Yitzchak, and with him equals because he is Zerah Sarah and not Zerah Hagar. That's why he will be the person that I will have a bris olam with him and his children forever. As opposed to you accepting the fact that the bris can be with Zerah, Avraham, even from Hagar. You are willing to say, Lu Yishmael bali ya'ichel lefanecha. So the Kadosh Baruch Hu, no, the bris is daf with Zerah, Avraham from Sarah. That's the pasuk here in front of you. But then he adds, Ul Yishmael shmaticha. But I heard your prayer about Yishmael. There's something there. Hinei birachti oto. V'ifreiti yeah, he will be multiplied. There'll be hordes of them. V'irbeiti oto b'ma'od ma'od. Shnei mason nesiim yolid v'natativ l'goy gadol. But briti, but my covenant, akim et Yitzchak asher teled lecha Sarah. Again, I need you and Sarah here in order for the bris to continue. Lamoed hazeh b'shana acheret. But you know, Avram continues to see his son as Yishmael. What does it mean? This pasuk, the very insert Rabbeinu Bechaya, which I quoted, which is in the next page. Yishmael shmaticha, such Rabbeinu Bechaya koloima Yishmael avarech. Why? Mitzad tefillah shetam mitpalel alav. You prayed for him. I will fulfill the prayer. He will not have that covenantal relationship that Yitzchak has, but your prayer that you asked, Lu Yishmael Yichl Lefanecha, that will be fulfilled. Now, to what extent is that prayer fulfilled? I'm going to show you in a few minutes what that did to us. It says Shneimasa Nesiim Yoilid. So he says Nesiim means on one hand princes, as Rabbeinu Bechaya says, Lo orota itnasutamu malatam agdola, shetachul aleim birkat haribui yoter mishar amim, kemo shivticho Hashem yitbarach. Milat Nesiim does not just mean people which are of high station, princes, but also Nesiim is an idea of a cloud. Nesiim v'ruach. She'abdu min ha'olam achar ha'ma'ala ha'gdola. After they rise very big and very powerful, anybody remember here the situation when OPEC was the king and the world was afraid of Saudi Arabia, Shukli. And then it says here, Achar Malak Dola, Itzer Nesiim, means Kalim v'Ovdal Yermoz, She'im Kalim v'Ovdim min ha'olam, ultimately they will disappear. Kelashon Kaleh Anan v'Yelech. Limdecha Katuva Malchut Yishmael, Shetchilato Chazak, V'sofo Tashush. V'chen Amar Malach Lahagar, V'hu Yeh Per Adam. Klomar, what does that mean? Sheyeh ben bnei Adam kepere, sheyenatzeach hakol. V'achei ken yad kol bo, ultimately he will be defeated. Now I don't play the game of pinpointing history. You know, I have major problems with people that engage in these and find some appropriate medrash and decide this is happening, that is happening. I don't do that. What I do know that there's a certain flow of history. When and how is not my business. But there's a certain up and down here. And there's a certain relationship of Yishmael that because of the tefillah of Avram Avinu, he is an empowered person which ultimately can at certain times in history dominate the stage of history, control it, and ultimately will be defeated. And this is all because of Lu Yishmael Yichya Lefanecha. This is a pasuk. This is clear. But here, just to show you something unbelievable, in that same Rabbeinu B'chaya, he writes the last 4 lines. Katav Rabbeinu Hananel. Rabbeinu Hananel wrote. Rabbeinu Hananel, we know, has Kabbalas HaGaonim. The Rach is our kli key, is our conduit to Kabbalas HaGaonim. The Rach, the Aruch. Re'inu shenitachraf tachazu lehem 2,333 shana. It took 2,333 years for this malchus to actually happen. If you look carefully, you calculate that Shevel does their action, his notes at the bottom. It comes out that basically the 10th year of the beginning, from when Islam started, when it finally became strong and Mecca and Muhammad had to leave Mecca. That is the point of time, which is year 1 in the Islamic calendar. So Rabbeinu Hananel is very accurate. It's not that they sinned, but there was a time for it. Here he adds a point that they had waited. They knew this nevuah. They were waiting for their malchus. Rabbeinu Hananel is not talking medrash. He's talking of his own experience. He lived there with them. That means that the local imam was waiting so long from the different religions found in Yishmael until finally Islam came on the stage. And 10 years after Islam finally became a dominant figure, only then, he says of this, think about us. Well, we have a lot of promises too. We may as well be like the Islam and start believing that we're going to get there. That's how he ends. I'm trying to say, I see from here again what Rabbeinu Hananel says, that we look at Yishmael, we look at Islam. Therefore, I couldn't care less whether the Palestinians are an African tribe or they are genealogically offspring of Yishmael. Totally irrelevant to me in my word of ideology and theology. I look at them as the continuing of Bnei Yishmael, of Yishmaeliyut, just as Raimi is today perceived in the Western world, according to the Maral, Ibn Abarbanel, etc., and of course the Ramban, which saw the Christian church as the continuance of Esau. We look at ideologies, that's what we're looking at. So basically, we understand one thing which is clear now to everything. Yishmael is Islam. Yishmael is empowered because it has the shame Aleph Lamed Kale in his name, and therefore he will have a dominance which is very frightening. Yishmael has been empowered with a bracha from his own father, from Avraham Avinu, which was willing for him to be the Baal Bris with the Kadosh Baruch Hu, and the Kadosh Baruch Hu says, no, I'll be his friend, but he won't be a Baal Bris. What happens after Yitzchak is born? And this is something I want to bring you to see how it's seen in the Quran versus how it's seen by us in our tradition. On the pasuk in Bereshis Chaf Aleph Tes, where it says that after Yitzchak the Suda of Higomel Yitzchak, then Sarah saw Yishmael mitzachek. What does mitzachek mean? So basically, I'm going to quote the Rebbeinu B'chaya, but the source is the Pirkei Rabbi Lazar. It's found in your sheets. This is Bereshis Chaf Aleph Tes. Dr. Rebbeinu B'chaya mitzachek. Ki hayu Yishmael v'Yitzchak merivim al Yerusha. Vayomer Yishmael liYitzchak, ani bechor, v'ani notel pi shnayim. Vaya yotze lasadeh v'zorek po chitzim. That's how it's written here. But if you read the Pirkei Rabbi Lazar, it's more explicit. We can understand exactly what they were arguing about. Steht in Pirkei Rabbi Lazar at the beginning of Perek Lamed, talks about the Asar and the Siyonos of Avraham Avinu. HaNisayon HaTshi'i, the 9th Nisayon of Avraham Avinu is Yishmael. Nolad B'Keshet Mitrabah B'Keshet Shenemar V'Aya V'Yehi Roveh Kashos. Means he was violent. V'Aya Notel Keshet V'Chitzim, he would take his bow and arrow. V'Aya Yoreh Achar Ofot, and he would shoot down birds. One day he saw Yitzchak sitting in solitude. And he shot an arrow to kill him. And then we see how Sarah reacted and understand why. The Sarah, the Igida Avraham, Sarah went and told Avraham, this is what happened, that Yishmael tried to kill Yitzchak. Ela Amoid, stand. Uktoiv li Yitzchak, write down now a contract to Yitzchak. Kol ma shenishba Kadosh Baruch Hu litein lecha uzarecha. It's clear as day that he wanted to kill him because he wanted to be the Yerush of Lu Yishmael Yichel Lefanecha, and he wanted to get Kol ma shenishba Kadosh Baruch Hu litein lecha uzarecha. So now I need you to affirm this by writing it down in a star. That Here we see as clear as day that he wanted to kill him. The tension between Yishmael and Yitzchak goes back to the old question. Who is the Ben Ha'ov? Who is the Irish of Avraham Avinu? Now, we're not talking just about money. Kol asher nishba Hashem lasis means who is the Baal Bris? Just as when we look at the brachas of Esav and Yaakov, you think we're talking about Gashmias. Adirab, I must say the honest truth, Esav is doing well. He got himself Italy. Believe me, it's a nice country. And all we got is this dry, arid place called Israel. But we are the Bali Bris with HaKadosh Baruch Hu. And Esav wanted that. In the Sefer Hakeda in Parshas Achremais, which he deals with this at length, explaining that bracha of Yaakov Avinu, the bracha that Yitzchak to Yaakov, was giving him the avus. He was the Baal Bris with the Kadosh Baruch Hu. And just as the Esav is mekatreg every year on the avus of Yaakov Avinu, anybody, this Rosh Hashanah was a Shabbos, so we didn't blow shofar. So what I do then is neshama parents for saying, as the Baal HaKeder writes, if you can't do a mitzvah, at least try to focus on the Tamei mitzvah, what it represents, and that at least you be kind of the mitzvah, not b'poyo, but at least through its ideas and its ideals. So I studied the Zohar, which is printed in the Machzor, right before Tkiyos, and I sat down and I learned. There's two pieces of Zohar. There's a regular Zohar and the Raya Mehammer, and there it describes at length how every year Esav, so to speak, gets up and contests the bris with Yaakov Avinu. And that's why he brings all the Chatoim of Klal Yisrael to Kodesh Baruch Hu, saying, listen, why does this guy have a bris? They're a bunch of jerks. And here, whatever happens, when you say Mutach Shiaslem Nes, it'll be a miracle, we'll be saved, doesn't mean you and me. It means Klal Yisrael, that bris will be saved. But every year there's a kitrug on the bris, on the brachas of Yaakov Avinu. So you have to understand Yishmael is a mekatrig on the avus of Yitzchak. Yishmael is a mekatrig on the avus of Yitzchak. He tain is lu Yishmael yichle fanecha. I'm to be the ben bris. And that's why he wants to kill Yitzchak, and that's why Sarah says, no, you must write down Kol asher nishba Hashem elecha. Lotis lechova zarecha. All that was given, which means to say that whole bris, yes, that's what Yitzchak wants. He's not happy with just because get shilton. He doesn't want that. He wants more. He wants what Yitzchak has, which is the bris. Now this is a davar mavura, just to see how far this goes. We know that Sarah told him to throw out Hagar and Yishmael, and the pasuk says in Berash over there in that same parak, it says in parak Chaf Aleph pasuk Yudalet, Vayashkem Avram ba'boker v'yikach lechem v'chemas mayim. And Rabbeinu Bechai asked the question, why Dafki? He's a rich man. He could have given them camels with gold and silver, and loads of food. What did he do? He gave her a pitcher of water with a little bit of bread. What did he expect? How long would it last? So he asked, Hayalo litin la kesef v'zov u'gmalim nosim otam lefi shefa mamon she'ava beit Avram. Kibno hayashit palel alav. Didn't you pray about this kid? Didn't you say Lu Yishmael Yichel lefanecha, and now you're sending him off with lechem v'chemas mayim? I'm going to skip and go to where I underline. Yitachen lomar. V'ush Avram ra'ah b'maria nevuah. Avram saw through prophecy. Shatidim banav lishtabed tachat yad Yishmael. There will be a certain dominance of Yishmael on the children of Avram, meaning the children of Yitzchak, which were born. V'chi yisnu'o to sinah gdolah. She'en umah ba'olam sheyu sonim liYisrael kibnei Yishmael. Everybody always quotes halacha b'yadua she'esav son liYaakov. Shtei don Rabbeinu Bechaya that there's no ummah which hates the Jews more than Bnei Yishmael. The Ma'aseh, it's a Zohar Kodesh. You should know the Zohar Kodesh writes the Furish in Chelik Beis and Shmois Daf Yud Zayin Amud Aleph, and the pasuk in Mishlei where it says Shifcha ki tirash gvirta. When the Shifcha is Yerush, the madam, means Hagar is Yerush, the Sorora of Sarah. Da Hagar. Ein lecha golus kosher liyisrael k'mei golus Yishmael. It couldn't be worse. Ein lecha golus kosher liyisrael k'golus Yishmael. That's a Zohar Kodesh. This is what he says over here in Ben Abchaya. She'ein lecha uma soinim liyisrael yosim liyishmael. Al kei zot Ben Abchaya hitnaegi Avram imay k'mosheroi litnaegi masoinim. V'nosan lechem b'mayim. But that's it, and he wasn't worried about his humanitarian necessities. And this is the son that he loved, etc. of Adkan. That's what it says over here in Rabbeinu Bechaya to explain, because he understood how big this kitrug is going to be. Where exactly is the place of this kitrug? And this I have to show you something which is frightening, but this is what we have in front of us. I printed both the Zohar and the Sulam, which has the Hebrew translation. So I'm going to read the Hebrew translation, if you don't mind. By me, it's on page 9. And it says, I'm going to the 4th line in Tirgum Asilam, V'kach shamati davar pivsha Rabbeinu Shimon. This is what I heard from Shimon Bar Yochai. This is Reb Chia saying, Ubachiti, and I cried. She'omar, that Rabbi Shimon said, Vayel otozman, woe on that time. Mishum shesora ne'ekva, Sarah, it took time for her to give birth. Katuv v'tomer Sarayel Avraham bonal shivchasi. Because she didn't have children immediately, so she told Avram to go have children with Hagar. Al-Kain Asha Amdallah Hagar, so that time she had her place. The Reshet that Sarah Gvirta, she had the capability of overtaking the Imahut, which was Sarah's. Vayala Agar ben mi Avram. Avram Amar Lu Yishmael Yichel Lefanech, and he prayed for him that he should be the Baal Bris. Although God promised him a son, Afal Pikein, he prayed for Yishmael. He's dabik abadam Avram Yishmael. It's unbelievable. God promised you a Yitzchak and Sarah, who in his dabik, the Lashon says, in his dabik Avram Yishmael. No, I have one. I don't need this. It's frightening to see how this is written. And then Yishmael had the bris of Mila, v'nichlas a bris hakodesh. Miterim sheyotza Yitzchak la'olam. Bo re'eh. Arba me'od shanim. 400 years. Amad ha'memuna shebnei Yishmael, the sar of Yishmael, up in Pamalia Shemalia, who bikesh l'fnei HaKadosh Baruch Hu, and he each asked of God, Omer like Misha Nimo, yesh lo chelek b'shimcha. A person that is circumcised, that the religion and their culture demands circumcised to join in covenant with God. That's why they're circumcised. Do they have a chelik in your name? Omer le'HaKadosh Baruch Hu came, of course. If they circumcise, they have a chelik and a certain bris with me, and therefore we have a chelik in your name. But Yishmael was circumcised. Why is he not? Doesn't have a chelik in you like Yitzchak? This one was at 8 days old. It was kitikunai. You didn't get that. You are nebuch like Avram Avinu. Yitzchak is born perfect. Because we do it 8, the Jews, and they wait till 13. That's why they don't have a chelik like us. Otherwise, they would. I want us to understand what this is. This is not Esav. This is something which Chazal are telling us. L'maisa, they're good candidates for the bris with the Kodesh Baruch Hu. And the difference is because their dveikus is only after 13 years as opposed to after 8 days. And we're Kiroi, Yitzchak was Noilad, B'Kedusha, and this was not that way. But there was Lu Yichir Fanecha. Okay, so they're not equal. Where's the reward for their having their relation with the Kodesh Baruch Hu through bris? What was that time that he was born and he was circumcised? So what did God react? This kitrug of the Sar of Yishmael. He does not have a supernal relation with God at the highest levels. He can't touch the dynamics of God's interaction with the world as the Jew can. But Natan lo chet lemata be'eretz hagdosha. But gave him a chelik in Eretz Yisrael. B'shvila amila shebehem. They have a chelik in the Zaracha Etenis Azara. It's frightening. We have to understand what we're looking at when these things happen. This wasn't a Gatas before 48. But today we're here. We're the fulfillment of the bris. And here's the kitrug. Oh, they will be here for quite a while. Bzman shehi reikam yikol. Yes, when she's empty and desolate, the Ottomans, all the way back to this Salah ad-Din, etc., and beforehand, they controlled this patch of grass. Kemo shamila shem reikabilesh lemut. They will somehow make sure that Jews will not get back to this country. Until finally the schus will be over. Then we won't have them anymore. Obviously, the schus is terminated or terminating. So they're still hanging on to it, but it's on the way out. We're here. And I can go on and on. This is enough at the moment. What we see in front of us here, which is terribly important, is that the Iker Mokim HaKitrug of Yishmael is in Eretz Yisrael. He's a Nimail, Lu Yichir Fanecha. He has the name of Elif Lamed on his name. We're going to explain all that. And thus, he tied his Eretz Yisrael is still mine. You're not supposed to be here. And that's what we're seeing now. Are we seeing terrible Sina? Are you kidding? What went through Simchas Torah in the 2 days afterwards? It's beyond description. I don't want to talk about it because I don't like to express emotion publicly. Don't want to talk about it. Beyond horrendous. You look in Yad Vashem, think of what happened there. Think of the Khmelnytsky pogroms. Think of what happened there. But you have to understand this is the real issue. The issue is between Yishmael and Yitzchak. The issue is that he's the man. Now, Lamais, I just want to show you, I actually printed a piece of the Quran for you to see something. So I don't know if you have the sheet, it's sheet 10. We're in the Quran, chapter 37. It's a very nice book, by the way. I'm looking at verses 100 until 113. He describes after the birth of Yishmael, I'm going to read the Hebrew translation. I'm not fluent in Arabic. Vahi b'agia zeh, we see Yishmael el et habina. Vayomer Avram elav b'ni, talking about Yishmael, ra'iti b'chalomi. I saw in my dream, v'ini makrivcha la'olah, I sacrifice you as a korban olah. Ma tachshav ozeh, what do you say? Vayan and Yishmael said, Avi, my father, aseh kasher tzuveita, do as you were commanded, v'tir'eh b'ratzon Elokim, and see the will of God. Ki ani min hasavlim, I am those that suffer, I don't mind. Whatever happens, happens. This is God's will. V'yiacheho yilam shneim, v'yocheo panav. After they both agreed to this, he basically set him up on his altar by Dikra Elav, and then what Malach called to Avram said, Avraham. He named Tzdak Chazuncha. Your vision has been validated. Kach nitan sachar liyishrei derech. Thus you will have reward to those who follow directly. Ach Masai says, though this was a test. V'nesita loy korban acher. You will bring another korban. This is, by the way, the source of, if you know anything about what happens in this world, the source of the fet, which is called Eid al-Adha. Eid al-Adha is a holiday that they have, the Chag of the Korban. That's the Re'im, the set, which is found instead of the Akedah of Yishmael. V'nesiba bracha l'dor noilad shalom al Avram kein yishlam gmul yishrei le'derech yanki ayam avadenu amamanim banu unevasreyu et Yitzchak nevi tamim. Due to the Akedah of Yishmael, the schus that Yishmael and Avram agreed to the Akedah, therefore Yitzchak was born. There'll be bracha for both Yishmael and Yitzchak. There's some children which will be very nice. This is the theme going all through Islam. This is a major idea found in Islam. They see it not as Akedat. The Ben Abchor is the son of Abraham in the Quran. The Akedah is not the Akedah of Yitzchak. The Akedah is the Akedah of Yishmael. It is not someone which doesn't know he's better than ours. He was told before that he will be sacrificed. He says, of course, I agree. It's a different theme. If you look at it carefully, it puts him a grade higher, so to speak. And only b'schus that Akedah of Avram and Yishmael, that was the B'sira of the later of Yitzchak. Yitzchak is the secondary. Now, this is referred to in a piyut that we say. Many people sing this on Shabbos. It's a piyut of the Ibn Ezra called Sama Nafshi Lekel Chai. So there's a line over there at the end of the piyut which says, Re'ei L'giveret Emet. Look at the true lady, which is Sarah. Shifcha no Emet. It is the Shifcha, Hagar, which is speaking. Loi kibnei chamesh. Your child is the dead one, equals Yitzchak. Ubni Achai, and my son Yishmael is the one which is alive. She is saying that this goes after the story of Mishpat Shleimai. This is the kitrug of Hagar against Sarah. And Ibn Ezra is praying that God should see this and say, what's the truth? Who is the true son? Is the true son the son of Sarah, Yitzchak, or is the true son the son of Hagar, which is Yishmael? It is interesting to notice this Ibn Ezra L'Shitase, which believes that Yishmael is the Malchus. Later in Machzor Vitri, which is the school of Rashi, the French Ashkenazim, they couldn't handle this, so they added a piece to that poem, which doesn't even fit, because this goes according to the alphabet of the name of Avram ibn Ezra. So naturally, it should end with a hey. But then another point starts with an aleph, because this is what the Ashkenazim did. They said ekod. They said it goes like this. It ends with a hello chelkacha meirosh. Ends with a hey. Hello chelkacha meirosh. Your chelik Hashem amoy. Yaakov chelvon nachlas is meirosh. Chalak damay drosh. You had no hair, which is Yaakov Avinu. Damay drosh. Demand vengeance for his blood. Shvoich af al roish asar achai. Pour wrath on the head of Esau, which is Asar Achai. The Ashkenazim, because they understood that the Malchus or Revius is Edom and not Yishmael, therefore they decided to add an aleph to this piyut. The tension between the Ibn Ezra and Ramban is clearly found here. The Ibn Ezra finished it with the kitrig of Sarah and Hagar. The Rambanistim added Yaakov and Esau. But let's get to the Ibn Ezra, because that's what I want to see here. Yes, he's clearly saying that what we have learned through the Pirkei of Blazers, the Zayir, through the Psukim, that Yishmael is tying that the Shifcha was Yerush the Gbirta. That Hagar, not Sarah, is the real wife, and Hagar had Yishmael, and he is the real Ben Bris. And the nafkamina is for his Chalik and Eretz Yisrael. This is what's happening. So I want us to understand what this really is who is the real Zerah Avram? That's the real issue in front of us. Don't look at security. Don't look at a broad historical perspective. Who is the Zerah Avram? This is this is a religious war. Ask the Hamas, they'll tell you. It's a religious war. They don't think about politics. They think about religion. I wish we would. This is a true Melchemes mitzvah in the highest thing possible. It's Melchemes Hashem. Adoni Leichem. Look at Lashon HaRambam. When you go to war, you have to understand you're fighting the battles of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. There couldn't be a more profounder battle than this. That where is the bris avos? Is it Yishmael, or is it the Quran's version of the Akedah, or is it the Chumash's version of the Akedah? What do we know? What do we do? So here I want to explain. What are we supposed to do in such a situation? You know, we saw before in Rabbeinu Bechaya, based on the Pirkei of Elazar, that woe is those who will live in the period when Yishmael will raise his head, which is us. But Yishmael was named with an Aleph Lamed. What does that mean? What is unique about the Shem Kale, Aleph Lamed, which is part of our name, equals part of our DNA, it's part of our spiritual composition, and part of Yishmael's name. And this gives him his strength and gives him his taina. What is it? And how do we translate that? And what do we do with that? So I brought you a, I don't usually take this out, but here it is. Here I go. I have certain times you have to do more than what you're used to doing. And here you have in a source 11, Pelech HaRima, in which they Pirush of Menachem Azaria of Fano. Actually, was a professor of medicine in the University of Padua. Rama of Pano. He was a Talmid Talmidoi of the Ari, great Kabbalist in Padua. If you go to the University of Padua, there's actually a bust of him on the wall, you know, Dr. Fano. And he has a book on the Pardes Rimonim, which is a book of Moshe Cordovero, the teacher of the Ari and Kabbalah, the major Kabbalist of Sfat before the Ari came from Egypt. And the Pirush is called Pelech HaRimon. It's a Pirush on Pardes Rimonim. There's a Perik Chav, Shar Chav, and Pardes Rimonim talking about each name of God. What does it mean, and how should we relate to it? So I'm going to read. I didn't photostat the Pardes Rimonim. That would be too esoteric. I printed out here the Pelech HaRimon. So if you have it, I just want to read a few lines. Shem Kale, the name Aleph Lamed. Ham Yuchasa La Chesed. This talk about Kale is talking about the God in the Midah of Chesed. Now, what's the source of this before you go further? The source of that is a Pashat the Pasuk in Tehillim Nun Beis. I think it's here. I think I printed it out. Let me see it. The Pasuk in Tehillim, yes. Perek Nun Beis, Pasuk Gimel. Matis Halel B'Ra'ah HaGibor, Chesed Kale Kol Hayoy. The Gra brings the Sambira, Gra in Yeridea, Reishayin Vav. Kale is Midas HaChesed, but Kale means strength, fortitude. Eilei Ha'oretz. So what does it mean? Kale am Yuchas El HaChesed. Pirush Lashon Chozek means strength, fortitude. Shu Takif Umagbir Chasadav Aladin. His chesed is so dominant that it overwhelms other issues. Very strong in midas of chesed. And then he goes on and explains, and I'm not going to go into depth here. It means to say that even when things are, it doesn't matter. We go for chesed. Kale is strength, fortitude, and midas of chesed. What does it mean when we talk about chesed? What is this midah of chesed that's found in Eil? Well, we understand, we all know that Avram Avinu was a Merkava. He basically, his avodah was through chesed. Not only was avodah through chesed, but his chesed was inherently the signature of his bris. How do I know that? That's a Gemara in Ksubis. Gemara says in Ksubis, Taf Ches. I have it in one of the sheets over here. The Gemara says, "Kum nemer milsa, come say some words to Nichum people that are Menachem Avelim." In source 21, Chesam at Beis. Kum ema milsa kenegi Menachem Avelim. Come say some words for those people who are Menachem Avelim. Pasach v'Omar, and the Amora said, to Rabbi Yosef, if I'm not mistaken, Achenu, our brothers, Goim le chasodim, b'nei goim le chasodim, hamachzikim bebrisai shel Avram Avinu. Achenu, Bal hagmul yishalem lachem gmulchem baruch atah mishalem hagmul. You know, I haven't found any other midah which Brisai Yitzchak or Brisai Yaakov. The only place where we see there's an idea, there's Brisai Avram Avinu, is found in two places. In the bris, interesting, when we make a bris, there's a bracha shekichan mitzvos yitzvana ala milah, and there's another bracha lachnisei bebrisai shel Avram Avinu. There's no bracha on chesed, but this Gemara teaches me that goyim lechasadim are saying that they are machzikim bebrisai shel Avram Avinu. The midas hachesed and the bris milah somehow have come together here. It means to say that the signature, the bodily signature of the covenant lies in the bris milah, which Rabbeinu B'chai explains. He learns how to curtail his animal instincts. Rabbeinu B'chai elaborates on this in Parshas Hamilah based on Rambam and Moreh Nevuchim. He knows that to set a limit to his taivus. And then there's the signature not in his body, but the signature in his personality. And that is midas hachesed. I want to define the midah of chesed. And to do this, I want to go to a perik in Tehillim. It's found here. You have it in your sheets. It's perik Peites. Maskil le'itan ha'ezrachi. This is authored by Eitan ha'ezrachi. Who is Eitan ha'ezrachi? The Gemara says in Bava Basra Tesvav Amid Aleph that the Gemara Amar Rav Eitan ha'ezrachi zo Avraham. Ktiv hacha Eitan ha'ezrachi. It's a pasuk in Yeshayahu where the Gemara in Sanhedrin explains this goes on Avram Avinu. I'm not going into the drasha. You can look up at the Marshal there in Bava Basra Tesvav. So again, going back to Perek Tesvav Maskil le'itan ezrachi. This is a very unique poem that is attributed to Avram Avinu. That's the memory of Rav in Bava Basra Tesvav. And your immediate question is, why is it in this context he's called Eitan? What does the word Eitan mean? And why is Avram called Eitan in context of this poem? Well, let's read a few pieces of this poem. Chastei Hashem olam ashira. It says the chesed of HaKadosh Baruch Hu of the world that I will sing. L'dor v'dor odia munasecha b'fi. I will generation after generation let people know of your trustworthiness with my mouth. My faith in you with my mouth. Ki amarti, if I have said olam chesed yibaneh. The building of this world came with the chesed of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Shamayim tachina munascha bahem. You've set up the heavens with your trustworthiness, your true self in them. This is a mizmor which starts describing God as the God of chesed. The famous pasuk olam Chesed Yibaneh. It is in this context that Avram is called Eitan. It's his name. We all know that the name of a person defines what his soul identity is. That's why there were changes of names by the Avos. When Avram became Av Hamoin Gayim, we added a Hey to his name. When Yisrael, Yaakov became Kisarisa Elohim Vatuchal, he became Yisrael. In this context of the midah of chesed, Avram is called Eitan. What does this mean? What is chesed? What is chesed? The answer is, there's one more place where this idea of chesed, Eitan, comes from. And that's a pasuk in Melachim Aleph, Perik Ches, pasuk bet. Pasuk says, "Vayikalu el HaMelech Shlomo, Kol Ish Yisrael b'yerach ha'eitanim bechag." That's Tishrei. But Yerach Ha'itanim B'Chag. Tishrei is called Yerach Ha'itanim. The Gemara says, because that's when the Eitanei Ha'olam were born. What does that mean? We'll see in a minute. Let's see what the Targum says. Vitkanishu Levas Malka Shlomo. That means all the people convened to the King Solomon. Kol Nash Yisrael, all the Jews be Yarcha, Datikaya, Dikorin Le Yarcha Kadmor. That the ancient ones call it the original, the ancient month, or the month of the ancients. Yarcha Kadmor, the first one. Eitan means to say Yarcha Kadmor, the original existence. What does that mean? Whereas Avram is called Eitan and Midas HaChesed, Tishrei is called Eitan, Eitanim. So here's something which I heard once from one of my mentors, which is worth looking into. You see, if you go to the concordance of Mandelkorn, what does the word Eitan mean? Where's the source of the word Eitan? Well, the source of the word Eitan, I have it here in my sheets. Well, in Latin, he says it's perennis or firmitas, which means to say, if you know a bit of English, it means continuance, it means consistency, it means basically very strong, always there, firmness. In Yano, chazak umutzak. That's what Eitan means, chazak umutzak. And then he continues, mishesh boy mishoresh yesh, is, Aleph, Yud, Saf, Aramaic is the source of the word is, which means it is, exists. It's a nice way of saying you are definitely, strongly existent. Eitan means to say he who is very, very existent. Eitan Moshavecha, you very much are there, and that's where you're living. Tzedakah kenachal eson. Tzedakah is like a very existent river which doesn't dry up. Atai vashta naharais eson. Another pasuk tell him you dried up those rivers which are very, very strong. They are very much there. Eitan means to say kiyum mutzak, as we would say in Hebrew, a very, very, very much existent person. Chodesh Eitanim is named after Avram Avinu because he is a son. Why is he called a son? Because he's nayeg, he sings the song of Chazdei HaKadosh Baruch Hu, and that is his midah. What is this chesed of HaKadosh Baruch Hu? What is its midah? Because this is what's found in the midah of Aleph Lamed that we have to care about today. So the Rambam in Nevuchim, in the third Shechelik, the 53rd chapter, I'm going to read a piece. He discusses the idea of chesed, mishpat, and tzedakah. And he says, ki chesed inyano ha'aflaga, be'ezeh davar shuflag bo. It means going endlessly, going forever, going way beyond normal mode. Shimusho ba'aflaga b'ma'aseh tov yoter. And here he says something very beautiful. He says, there's time that you do tzedakah, and there's time that you do chesed. Tzedakah means it's just. It means you have a certain moral values which demand from you to do certain things. People knock on my door, and they have their nebuch people, and they have a moral compunctions. I feel if God gave me and they don't have, and they're so destitute, they're going to knock on my door, I feel obligated to give to them, not a judicial obligation, but a moral obligation. That's called tzedek. I'm doing the right thing. That's tzedakah. That's not chesed. Chesed means altruism. Doing it not because of anything, just because it's there. Chesed means extending yourself endlessly without a cheshbon. Nothing of causing it except for the midah itself. I have an extensive personality and I express myself. I give without asking questions. Not because I will get olam haba, not because I will get olam haza, because how could I not? What's life without giving? And the Rambam continues and says, this is what it means. Olam chesed yibane. Kol ha-mitziut hazu klamahi matzoto yitaleh ota hu chesed. There was no reason for it. There was no moral compunctions of God that he had to do it. He had no nature that forced him to do it. The infinite chose to do it because that's who he is. לפיכך כל המציאות הזו כלומר היא מצאתו יתעלה אותה הוא חסד. אמר עולם חסד ייבנה. עניינו ביד עולם חסד הוא. That's Rav Chesed. The midah of Chesed is altruistically giving, not because of. The midah of Chesed, therefore, is obviously, why did God create the world? He created it. Did something force him? Did he have a moral compunctions? Did he need to? Did something force him psychologically? No, he's infinite. There's nothing which can force him to do anything morally, legally, or anything. There's nothing in him. He's infinite, he's pure, he's one. He's not fragmented. He did it because he did it. The language of Medrash is, it's a taiva. He had a taiva to build the world, which means to say it's a will not defined by logic. That's all it means. Rambam discusses this in Mari Nevuchim. For us, it means pure altruism, lack of judgmentalism, lack of categorization. Giving, because how can you not? Don't care who and how and why. Do not do tzedakah. That's not the midah of Avram Avinu. The midah of Avram Avinu is chesed. He does chesed with everything that moves. He does chesed with pagans that worship dust. He just does chesed. That's midas chesed. See, Avram Avinu, how did he come to meet God? By looking into creation. Gemara says, he looked into creation as Rambam tells us to do. And you understand, something is behind it. He found the creator in creation. And when he found the creator in creation, then God looked at him and says, yes, that's me. And they started dialogue. There was a search which took from the age of 3 to the age of 40, as recorded in Rambam in Hilchas Avodah Zarah. 37 years of contemplation. But I understand what he understood. That is, obviously, there's an infinite God which expressed himself in this creation, and this whole creation, everything in it, is an expression of his women will. He encountered the midas hachesed of HaKadosh Baruch Hu in creation. You know what chesed is? Giving existence. It's a pasuk in Yeshayahu. I want us to remember it. We said it in Haftarah in Yom Niraim. When Yeshayahu admonishes the Jews, they think that fasting is doing this and doing that. And he says, no, you guys have it all wrong. You don't understand what you need. To give life. Don't give money. Give stature. Give dignity. Give life. Give existence. Be an eitan. Give them a yesh. Give them a sense of being. No one should feel alone. No one should feel downtrodden. La'achyot ruach leiv nitkaim. La'achyot ruach shvalim. To give life to the emotions of those who are downtrodden. La'achyot, to give life, leiv, to the feelings of nitkaim, those who feel oppressed and depressed. Give life. Give life. I once heard from Chaim Shmulevitz something which I'll never forget. This was years ago when I was a young bacher. The Gemara says that a certain Tana, I forget which one it was learning so much that the Malchamavis couldn't take him. The Malchamavis doesn't take you when you're learning. So the Malchama dressed himself up as a poor man and asked him for alms, for bread. So he gave him some bread. So he says, listen, you have Rachmanis on a poor man to give him bread. Maybe you should have Rachmanis on me and give me your soul. So he gave him his soul. So Reb Chaim says, I also give bread to an ani, but I'm not going to give the Malchama my soul. And the answer is because every time Reb Chia gave bread, he gave his soul. He gave himself. He gave his life properties to other people. That's called chesed. Extending yourself and expressing yourself in other people's lives. Walk away from category. This is the koyach of Eil. The biggest kitcher could be Shmuel because he had the koyach of chesed. We all know Bedouin hospitality. And the nefila of Yishmael is when he sheds the meat of chesed and becomes a reitzeach and becomes the antithesis of kiyum. He's murders and slaughters. And the koyach is gabris of Klal Yisrael is dafke when this eis sar shemeni of Hasheya is when we're magber the meat of chesed. It wasn't 10 days ago that we in this country were at each other's throats. It was the you, I. Thank God. Different conversation today, Baruch Hashem. Different conversation. All of a sudden, I am one with the tattooed nose ring, ponytailed fellow. A mere one. I'm not tolerant, not even inclusive. Inclusive means there's I and thou. No, I'm one. That's chesed. Chesed, extensiveness of the self. And you express yourself. His life is yours and yours is mine. If there's anything we have to do today, we have to magber the midas ha'el, because Yisrael, as opposed to Yishmael, we have to show that we are the real Bnei Avraham. We have to show that we are the real Balei Abris. You know, it's so hard because Jews are so defining and we're terribly categorizing and we're terribly judgmental. Don't you understand that every time we do that, we're helping Yishmael? Every act of, not him, you're different. Oh, they're black hats. Or, Zrochanik. You know, I'm trying to think the two poles of the world. Every time that comes up in our mind, we're helping Yishmael. Every time we categorize, who's Smolani? You know, in Israel, that's a bad word. Who Yimani? He's a right-wing fascist. He's a left-wing ponytail. I don't know, whatever it be. Oh, no. We have to walk away from this. You know, at the moment, it's beautiful. We have to make sure that with our own hearts, this stays this way. Can you possibly do this with yourselves, with your families, with your children, the way people talk to each other, shuls, etc.? Stop being inclusive. Inclusive is an ugly word. It means I have my thing. I'm willing to include you in my circle. No! Break the freaking circles. Walk away from categorization. Means everybody. It means even the tattooed, ponytailed, nose ring fellow demonstrating in Kaplan Corner against Bibi's government. Can you do it? Do you even wish to, will to, want to, aspire to do it? Because that's the real agenda. That's the only way we will sof be menatzech the kitrug of Yishmael. We have to show that we have Aleph Lamed in our name. We are Zera Yitzchak. We have to tell Hagar, take a walk. Lo kibnei chameis bnei achai. We are the living son. And Yishmael is no more. Lu Yishmael yichel lefanecha is temporary. Ultimately, before Rishonim to Esav, v'yatzitzu kol poyele oven Li shomdom ad de ad. Vatom maroim la'ilam Hashem. It's God's war. It's a big war in Ruchnius. It's a big war and a kitrug on the bchira of Bnei Yitzchak and Eretz Yisrael. We have to chap this, and thus you can understand the avodah. We have to strengthen the midah of kale in our lives, which is chesed b'li gvul. Should I tell you be altruistic? Let's just start by not categorizing people. Let's by looking at things historically in a broad way. A suggestion, I'm talking about the whole world, not just about Jews, by the way. Avraham Avinu didn't even care whether they're Ovdav Zorah or not. Are you in pain when you hear about the tragedies of people living in a ghetto? Well, if you would, you're a real Avraham Avinu man. But at least the Jew, don't categorize us. Don't define us. Never feel smug about being inclusive. Inclusive is the Hasidah. The Hasidah is an oif tameh, so Chazal say it's only merachim on its own min. You know what inclusive means? I'm adding you to my min. Thank you. I'm adding you to my group. You are a subcategory in my group. That's the Hasidah. It's an oif tameh. That's not eil. That's not Avraham Avinu. Shenira kol echad mailas chavireinu v'lo chisroinam. God should help that these different Torahs should have hashpah on us all. And through this, Nizgiv Hashem mevadeh b'yomahu, v'hoya Hashem amelcha kol ha'oretz, b'yomahu yiyah Hashem echad d'shmai echad. Have a good day. God, Kal Yisrael should have b'suras tovos. We should all do what we have to do. Take care. Kol tov. Good seeing you all. Bye.
תודה רבה לרב בלחמן.
תודה רב, בשורות טובות, זמן טוב.
Kol tov. מה שלומך מתן?
מעולה, ברוך השם.
Right. Jake, I haven't seen you in ages. Where do you live?
Hi, Rebbe. Lincolnwood in Chicago. Good
you're
to see you.
back home?
Yes.
Oh, goodness. Wow, you look
Here.
a bit.
Well, I'm not a rabbi, but I am a doctor.
Oh,
And
that's great.
I got to show you this guy. He's sleeping, but
Oh, boy. Baruch Hu Baruch Shema. Oh,
he's waking up for Rebbe.
thank God. Jake, you still have a good taste in ties?
All my best ones I'll send to you.
I remember. Remember when you said you gave me that tie for my birthday? It was unbelievable. Take care. Bracha v'atzlacha, okay? Bracha v'atzlacha.
Thanks.
Bye, everybody.
Thanks, Rebbe. Good to see you.
Good seeing you all.
Bye.
Oh, hi, Yoni. Phil, goodbye. Hey, Junie. Hello. How are you, Junie? Oh, good old Burke. How you doing, Toby?
Baruch Hashem, good, Rebbe. How are
Oh, I
you?
haven't seen you guys in ages. Woo.
It's been
Dr.
too long.
Burke,
Been too
you in
long.
Montreal?
No, actually, in Atlanta now. We've moved on. We're south of the border now.
Oh, goodness sakes. It's warm there.
Sometimes a little too warm, but Baruch Hashem, we're good. Good.
Very nice. Well, you should bracha v'atzlacha. I was there a few years ago for scholar in residence, right before your Matzmod.
Oh, okay. I hope it happens again soon then.
I'll talk to Rabbi Feldman. I'll come just to see you.
I'll work on it.
Okay, guys, listen, I love you all. I'm going to say, I really have to go. Bye. Bracha v'atzlacha. We should have b'suras tovos, everybody.
תודה רבה, הרב. תודה. שלום
Thank you.
לכולם. בשורות טובות.
Bye, MZ. Bye.